Hello, my name is Brenton Reed, and this is my Phase 3 project in the software engineering program at Flatiron School. In Phase 3, we learned about Ruby, Active Record, Rack, and learned to set up our own servers, and learned some things about databases. And so I thought, Mad Libs would be kind of a fun thing to pursue and would lend itself to using different tables. So I created Localibs because Mad Libs was trademarked. And let's begin. I did the front in React and I used hooks. I hadn't used them before. So that was really fun. It certainly saved on code. Yeah, I'll never go back. It's so easy to use them. So first I fetch randomly generated story with blanks, and each blank has a placeholder that prompts the user to input the type of word or phrase that is required for the story to make some amount of sense. And so the first step is creating a story. So the user would just put in words, and I'm not going to actually put in words here. Just going to do this. And then the app, once the user clicks finish, zips up each of those with the story that's sent to the external API. And they're like, oh, okay, I like that. And then they put in their name if they want to save it. And then to see their story and other stories, they just click that. And this is a list of all the stories that have been created and not yet erased. If they want to erase a story, they can erase the last one. And I was going to make a button to delete all, but I wanted the user experience to be clean, and I wanted it to make sense. And I couldn't think of a good use case for delete all except for development. And then if a user clicks new story, they get a whole new story and they get to repeat this. So the front end, I started with the front end, React. As I mentioned, I used hooks and have quite a few components, but I'll just hit some of the main ones. So the API, as I mentioned, brings in a story and blanks. And so these blanks, which I'm calling user inputs, get presented to the user, as you can see here. And the user fills them in, and then they use this presentational component to input their information, and then pass it back up into the story container, which then sets it to state. And then once they do that, I zip it up with the story. And then you might see this finished story here that actually toggles what appears here. So once the story is finished, this becomes true, and then it will show either this or it'll show the zipped up version here. This also sets the username to state. And then when someone selects save story here in this component, it actually first submits users to the users table, and then it submits stories because the user has a one-to-many relationship with stories, and stories belongs to users. And in addition to an ID, to a user ID to populate stories with each row of stories, I also brought over the name so that each story gets a name. So when you're looking at this, you could see who all the folks are who created a story. And I used a couple of ternaries here. And this is for display, as I mentioned. A few other components. I was really trying to separate my container from my presentational components here. I didn't want to use any classes, all functional components, and of course props. So the further I go and the more opportunities I have to use React, the more comfortable I get with it. And yeah, I've been enjoying it. I did the styling in CSS, which I'm also like really enjoying. I will make the switch to Bootstrap at some point, but I didn't in this case because I'm really enjoying CSS, and I know Bootstrap is really beautiful and easy to use. Just haven't done that yet. Okay. And yeah, so I did the front end first, and then I switched to the back end. And this is probably the most interesting thing to show. It's the routes and responses here. You know, I did a get post for users. For stories, I did delete, get, and post. And with stories, you could also find by ID number. And then I also added a words table because I thought, you know, if I had time, it would be interesting to see, especially if this is, you know, pushed out and deployed. After a while, it'd be interesting to go back and see what words people were using. If I could attract people to the website, especially make it kid friendly and stuff. It'd be just interesting to see like, where does booger rate or where does fart rate, you know? And I thought about making some graphs and stuff, but I kind of ran out of time for that. It was a really fun project, but yeah, I don't know, it just took a bit of time. Setting up the server was actually really straightforward, but of course it was kind of new because you know, using rack and was you know, we kind of got that in the last week and towards the end. So but it was a good time, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. And when I get a chance to figure out a way to do some cheap or free hosting, I'm really considering just putting it online, deploying it, and seeing where it goes. Thanks so much for listening.